Hey guys, it's Wisdom, and welcome back to another video. So I love photography, especially the editing part of it, because I feel like it's the part that really makes the photos stand out. It's a lot of fun to manipulate colors and light and just find styles that really enhances the story of the image. And speaking of stories, I also love movies. And there's actually a specific style on how the image looks in cinema. So I thought it would be fun and quite challenging to try and take an image that I took and try to make it look like a Hollywood blockbuster film. I hope this is interesting for those of you who are curious about the editing process of photography, and I also hope that it's helpful for those of you who are also photographers who's trying to get that film look in their images. So let's get started. Before we do anything to this photo, we want to get a reference from the movie that we're trying to make this photo look like. So in this case, I got this still capture from Man of Steel, and he's standing in front of this really dark background. And this is really important because you need a good reference photo. So in this photo, I have Dakota standing here, and he's also in front of a really dark background. So if you look at the histogram in the top right-hand corner, you'll notice that the image and where the histogram falls is actually really similar. What that means is that if you try applying this look to this image, you'll have an easier time to do so because all of the light information, all the color information are all in the same area. We also want to look at the saturation levels of this picture. So what we can do here is click on any of these adjustment tools right here. I just click the graduated filter. It'll all take you to the same place. And scroll down, and then there is an option called color. Click on this, and then this window will come out. So the trick is you click on the color, and then as you're holding onto the mouse, you can drag it onto the image, and it will tell you where that color belongs on the spectrum, okay? So we'll click, and then we'll drag, and then when we go out here into the image, you'll notice that the little box will show you where the hue is and what the saturation level is at, okay? So we can look at the sky belongs in this hue of 200, so blue and teal, or blue and aqua around this area, and the saturation level is about 32%, which means it's a pretty saturated image, okay? Here is 17%. This skin is not as saturated as the blue background, but you'll notice that the hue is around the orange 45 era, okay? So that's what we want to take a look at. So that was the colors, and the last thing we want to look at is the composition. So Dakota and Superman are kind of in a similar realm, but Dakota isn't cropped to cinema's aspect ratio, okay? So this is pretty narrow, so I would say this is about 2.39 aspect ratio, okay? So here we have a standard 4:3 image, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the crop, and then we're actually going to crop this image by clicking here, and then go to 2.39, or you can enter custom and type in 2.39 to 1 and hit OK, and then we'll crop. So now we have this image and this image, very similar, and from here we can actually get started with the editing process. The image here is kind of dark. This hill right here belongs in kind of like in this little world, okay? And then Dakota is like half of this world, okay? So we want to bring him out into this world. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna brighten this picture up by moving the exposure up until it reaches kind of like that same place. So around here is good. Okay, so after bringing the exposure up, and then we kind of have like matching hills on the histogram, we're actually gonna go down to tone curve. So without trying to get too complicated with the tone curve, basically what this is saying is that this is your image, and this is the darkest parts of your image all the way up to your brightest parts of your image. And the vertical axis will tell you how much stuff is in the dark part and how much stuff is in the light part, okay? And we notice that there's a lot of stuff in the dark parts of the image. So like the shirt and the background and the hair, it's all here, okay? And here, we notice that this is the lighter part of the image, and there's a little bit of stuff. And I would want to say that this is Dakota's face. So what we want to do is, in Superman's picture, is that his lightest part of his face is actually closer to the middle here. Okay, so what we want to do is we're gonna take the lightest part and we're gonna bring it down, which will shift all of the information to the left. Okay, so we'll keep it right there, all right? And if you notice the dark parts of the image, we don't really want it to fall into black, okay? So we're gonna take the darkest part. So we lift it up so that way the darkest part of the image doesn't really fall into black, because none of the black parts of the image really actually falls into black. So what we wanna do is we want to create contrast in this picture, but just a little bit. And to create a contrast, we make this thing called an S-curve, okay? So basically what this means is that in the middle part of the image, the kind of like the gray part of the image, I want that to be brighter, okay? And then in the darker parts of the image, I want those dark parts to be darker, okay? So when you take something that's brighter, make it brighter, and you take something that's darker, make it darker, you're gonna create contrast. Right here, I will put a dot here and then lift it up a little bit. So that way it can make this S shape. And what this S shape is doing is that it's making the transition from dark to light very gentle, okay? Because if I make this way too wacky, it'll make those transitions very harsh. So going back to basics, and Dakota's face is really bright, so we want to bring that highlight down so we can see more of kind of like the details in his face. His face, I don't know, his face seems a little brighter still, so I'm going to bring the whites down a little bit. I don't know if you noticed, it's very subtle, but I'm going to bring that down just a little bit. It's a little far from the left side, so why don't we bring the black down to create a little bit more contrast. Okay, oh, no, that's too much. You see how it's spiking right here on the edge? We don't want it to spike, we just want it to kiss it, just like that, okay? Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is skin tones, okay? It's important that we get the skin tone right. If we look here, Superman's skin is, we looked at it before, it's orange, kind of like on the yellow side. We can go back to here, go to color, okay? Click and drag, and then you notice that his skin kind of belongs in this like orange, yellow world. When we look at Dakota's image, go to color, we notice that his face is more on the red side. So what we're gonna do with that, we're gonna go to color grading, okay? So this is a kind of like a new tool that they had in Lightroom, is we're gonna go play with the skin tones, and his skin tone sits in the mid-tones right here, okay? His face is red, so the opposite of red is green, and that's how we neutralize that red, okay? So we're gonna bring up to kind of like this green-yellow area, all right, and then we're gonna bring up the saturation and that's us adding the colors in, okay? So if you notice, his skin is going from pink closer to that yellow world right here, okay? So we're there with that, and then his face also has a lot of highlights, so why don't we go to highlights, and then add a little bit of that yellow orange. Yeah, with the highlights, you really gotta pump that up in this image especially. Okay, we can take a look if you want to in the color picker. So right there, see, his face is now kind of in that zone where Superman's face is right now. Why don't we go to the shadow section, and we notice that it is teal, okay, orange and teal. There's this, you'll see this a lot in a lot of cinema, a lot of movies, okay? So it lives in this blue zone, okay? So about 207, 200 with 36%. So we're gonna go back to this picture. We're gonna go to the shadows section right here, and we're gonna bring this hue up to that 200 area, okay? All right, and then we are going to bring the saturation up. All right, it's starting to get there. All right. So the image from Superman is pretty dark, so why don't we bring the luminance down? Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is that his face is really yellow and the blue is really blue, okay? So we want to bring the blending down a little bit, okay? So we're not gonna, blending basically is not using so much of the color that we just put in, all right? Okay, and we're gonna bring it down to kind of like that world where Superman's at, okay? Okay, so what I'm noticing is that this blue is very saturated compared to this blue. So we're gonna go into color, and color is really cool because you can make changes to specific colors independently, okay? So we're gonna be working with the two most prominent colors in this image, which is blue and orange, his face, okay? So let's get the blue down. It's still blue, I kinda wanna make it a little bit more teal, so why don't we bring that down a little bit? Okay, not too much. Everything's very subtle. Okay, and then it's really saturated. So let's bring down the saturation. So maybe like around here. We're gonna kind of brighten up this blue a little bit. Okay, because I noticed that the clouds right here is pretty bright. So why don't we bring that up a little bit? Bring it like right there. And then we can go to the orange. And in the orange, the space, I don't know, it's still a little kind of the yellow side, so why don't we take the hue and make it a little bit more orange. Here we go, somewhere around there, okay? And then his skin is really saturated, so it kind of pops out from the background. So we're gonna bring the saturation down just a little bit, not a lot, because we still want some color in his skin so he's not like dead. Okay, so maybe like right there. I think that's good. And his skin's still pretty bright still, you know? So why don't we bring the lumens down? Not too dark. Bring it up a little bit. Kind of get a good middle ground. Yeah, there we go. That's a good, yeah, kind of fits that. Awesome. Okay, so the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go to effects, and then you can't do film looks without grain. So I think for me, 20 is always a good sweet spot for this image. There we go. So the point of this exercise is to not make this image look exactly like this image, because obviously this was shot differently with different lens, different cameras. It's very different from the picture that I'm taking. But the point is kind of create an image where this image and this image can live in the same world. So obviously this isn't perfect. I'm also still learning and practicing. I love doing these recreation edits from movie stills, so I want to get better at it, and I think this is a good way to get better at it, is to practice researching references and making changes to your own images to kind of replicate like that look. Well, that's about it. I hope you guys really enjoyed this process on how I edit photos to make it look like movies. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to comment below. If you're also a photographer or editor and you have any feedback for this video, if you found ways that are a lot easier or different, yeah, also please feel free to share. I'd love to keep learning and keep practicing this art form. So I'm thinking of posting up some of my edits on like a weekly basis over at my Instagram, which you can follow at @wisdommakesart. There you can also see my progress in learning how to play the violin, and as well as working out. So if you like this video, make sure you hit the like button, and also if you want to see more content like this, let me know. Please subscribe to see more art projects that I have in store. And yeah, thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.